Darren, do you want to introduce the next guest?
I do, thank you very much. Next guest is Laura, Glasgow primary teacher, also a digital trainer and a microbit champion. Laura's going to talk to us about a fantastic project of using microbits across the curriculum. Hi, Laura.
Hi. Hi, so I'm Laura Di Pasquale. I'm a primary school teacher in Glasgow. I teach primary 4 this year and primary 3 next year. I do a wee bit of training for the council and have our free microbits in the classroom that I've been using, which has been fab. So I'm just going to take you through a little bit about how I use microbit across the primary curriculum and in particular linking to the Sustainable Development Goals. So when I'm thinking about Scottish coding in the Scottish primary curriculum, the main 3 things I'm focusing on is computational thinking, the kids' ability to kind of analyze and understand technology, and for me, kind of more importantly, that ability to be able to test their solutions. And as we're just talking about app development, that kind of thinking through things and then testing it out at the end. In terms of like lesson planning with coding, you know, frequently there are loads of resources online, lesson plans and activities, but I really wanted to focus on this idea of developing the young workforce and including the Sustainable Development Goals in my planning to help make the coding a lot more relevant to the day-to-day teachings in the classroom. So in terms of developing the young workforce, I particularly like this kind of graphic from Barefoot Coding and that idea of the tinkering. And that's really where we start in the primary curriculum, even back in nursery, kids kind of playing about with what they've got. There's a link in this wee video here, and it's a really nice video to show to pupils in the classroom. And it's all about people that are really famous in the computing world, like Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and they're just talking about where they started and how their love of computing started way back when they were young children at the early stages of the primary curriculum. And I like this quote from Steve Jobs, that everybody in this country should learn how to program a computer because it teaches you how to think. And I really like to, when I'm talking about microbits and coding, and this idea of actually it helps pupils outside of the computing science world, and this idea of thinking, in problem solving, sequencing their thoughts and ideas to help staff that are maybe not quite on board to get on board with the idea of computing science and how it can enhance the rest of the curriculum. So here, I want to focus again, as I said, on being able to link computing science to the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, although there's a bunch of them here, I'm not going to talk about them all today. I'm just giving some of my ideas to help, and I'll put the slides in at the end. I'll link to the slides because there's lots of links that you can click on to bring you to different lesson plans, ideas, and videos. So the first one I was thinking about was Sustainable Development Goal 3, and this is good health and well-being. So Empathy Day, it's always in June. It's just passed, but it'll pop up again. And for me, this was being able to code your microbit to send a message or compliment to a friend, or in my class and in my whole school, we have a pupil of the day, and we give compliments to one child in the class every single day. And this way, being able to use the microbit to be embedded within that idea of your curriculum. So quick link there on how to turn your microbit to kind of send a Morse code message to link this in a slightly different way, and sending smiley face to someone who looks lost or sad. I know Alan and Francis talked about the kids who wanted to make the cruise ship app. This is like a really basic version of that, of just being able to send a message to someone. Being able to make the pedometer, I find that a really popular one. I've had kids in school, particularly primary 7, where we're starting to lose them. They're less engaged in the curriculum. Once you make the microbit pedometer and they pop it on their feet, these kids are running around the school. We have a balcony in my school, goes right around the middle, and the kids are running around there having so much fun. They're very quickly able to challenge themselves and add kind of cool wee things to it to make it give you different tunes and beats, and a bit like your Apple Watch would do when you get like 100 steps or 200 steps. Then thinking about linking more to the kind of wider curriculum ideal, setting a class or group challenge to achieve a certain number of steps as a team. And you can link this to real life situations or a specific measurement that you have to do. For example, how far a child needs to walk to school from their home to here in a different country, the length of Titanic, the number of stairs in Eiffel Tower, the height of Ben Nevis, and so on. Being able to turn your microbit into dice, I found that really popular in school. And each number on the dice can link to a different exercise. You roll a number 1, it's burpees, roll a 6, take a break for 30 seconds. And then hopefully the kids are rolling loads of 1s, and it's a whole lot of burpees that they're doing. And then the last one here for getting fit is developing a heart rate monitor. And there's a link there to be able to do that. In terms of emotions, using your microbit, sitting on the desk, putting happy faces, sad faces, or sending a message to the teacher, like a private message with a certain code. I want to discuss something. Microbit relaxation device, really simple. And there's lots of code along videos to do that as well. And I like the one about thinking about animals and looking after animals. And if it was dropped, that your microbit might make an alarm. Next slide. Here is 13 in terms of climate action. Coding your microbit to sound an alarm to remind people to turn off the lights. You could have an alarm every 10-15 minutes. Have a look around your room. What could you change in your room to help you to be a bit more sustainable? Or something like at nighttime, you think I go to bed at 9 o'clock. Have a little alarm kind of 5 to 9. Have I unplugged my chargers? Have I unplugged my TV from the wall? And setting up kind of a walk around your local area or within your school and see which parts of your school are a huge area of concern for energy wastage, create an action plan, posters and things like that for it. Outdoors, pretty simple to set your microbit up to be able to collect data. So I thought like litter picking in the park. Are we finding recyclable, non-recyclable products? Or within your school, within your bins, and then you're trying to do interventions that change, being able to track the weather, certain times of the day. The kids in my class like this, especially when with the hot weather, and it's like, whoa, it's 35 degrees in our classroom. We're roasted, and then you go outside and the microbit, blows up with the sunlight shining on it, bringing it into cooler areas. And it's a nice way to get children to understand a little more about actually what that temperature means. Kids in my class are only 8 or 9. They don't really understand what 20 degrees means. So actually being able to stand in an area and say, this is exactly what 20 degrees feels like, helps to make it more relevant to them. Next one, goal 9. This is industry, innovation, infrastructure. Gaming, I love the rock, paper, scissors game or the coin toss, making a dice countdown timer, things like that. Really fun to engage the pupils in the classroom. And I always say to them, oh, you could design a game. They think, no way, how could I possibly design a game? And we do one. And I'm like, well, now you're a computer game designer. Simple. And here's some full code cracking activities that you can click on with ideas and a bit more advanced. There's a nice YouTube video about making a pinball game. In terms of music aspect, again, thinking about using computing science across the curriculum, not just sticking to technology, coding some very simple songs, something like Twinkle Twinkle. It has loops going around. Can the children guess what it is? And children that have maybe the basics and being able to read music can very quickly code a familiar song for themselves, and find that quite interesting, especially if you link it with something like GarageBand, or using your GarageBand knowledge and using the microbit to be able to create what you have done. And if you want to really get advanced, I know when I played the piano as a kid and you had to listen to scales and you had to be able to say, oh, it was a D major scale or an E flat. That could be used kind of more in high school in playing scales for the kids. Which notes was it? And in terms of invention, turning your microbit into a radio device, sending Morse code signals across the room, special messages, thinking about the kind of idea of the digital escape room, see if you can link it to that. And again, I suppose thinking like the app development, that really comes into the invention side of things too. Here is the goal 14, life below the water. I know this is particularly relevant to kids. The kids are fascinated by life below the water and the sea life and the fish and sharks and all these things. So thinking about pupils can use their microbit to display different sea creatures. Here's a picture of a shark. Can you display the word shark after it? Here's a picture of a goldfish. Just to help them if they were doing a wee presentation. Click button A to show a picture of a shark, button B to show the goldfish, and the kids can say a wee sentence or two about what they have learned. And there's a link as well, a nice microbit.org lesson plan on thinking about turtles and fishing habits and developing lights using the microbits. As I know, kind of obviously turtles and the issues with lights along the shore and turtles getting lost. And then think about a beach clean, a bit like the one I talked before about the litter picker, but finding something that belongs on the beach, something that doesn't belong on the beach. Can they code that? Can they come up with, button A, something belongs, B, something that doesn't, create graphs out of it. But then can they create art from the ideas that come from that? And there's a few links there below of kind of more advanced projects thinking about below the water and the healthy oceans. And goal 15 is life on land. I love that, again, the counting device. Going out, can we count the number of bees that we can see, the number of butterflies, flowers? If you want to keep it really simple, like this group of 5 children, you're going to press button A and you're just going to count the bees. This little group of kids, you're going to count the flowers, or you can obviously use your microbit to make it a little bit more challenging, lots of different buttons to code different things, and take part in the RSPB Birdwatch survey so that you're contributing the idea of the wider community. Creating a device, an alarm to prevent animal poaching, and your microbit to act as an animal tracker. And life on land, again, a little bit using your microbit, more relevant to day-to-day life. Reminder to water your plants, to feed your fish, walk the dog, and add a pedometer into that as well. So an alarm, remember to walk the dog, and then your pedometer, how far are you and your dog walking? Maybe the dog can wear your microbit. I know somebody else talked about they were doing a project where they were getting cows to wear their microbit. So again, linking to the wider world around us. Creating a vehicle or room temperature alarm for pets. This is very like a huge issue, especially in the warm weather. Well, maybe people leave their kids in cars, but leaving your dog inside a car, leaving your cat inside a car, if you bring your cat out with you, I don't know, maybe people do. And coding that alarm to remember temperature getting too hot, the dog or your animal needs help. And then thinking about, there's a wee microbit lesson again about investigating infections. Quality education, coding your microbit to give you options for completing a task. So the kids have finished writing their stories. As a finisher task, they have to practice their spelling words. Code your microbit a bit like a dice, or with different options for it. Roll a 1, you have to write out your spelling words in pyramid writing. Number 2, write them in rainbow writing. Using the microbits for class vote. Kids love voting, love to get their point across, and also to include the pupils with visual impairment so they can cast their votes, or a person that has difficulty with speech, casting their vote without actually having to talk, or for the nervous kids. Being creative, spelling words out in foreign languages. You've got the word, I don't know, rosso. Can the quick kid guess quickly what the word is going to be in English? Storytelling machine, using it for the sound effects. Whilst you're telling your story, turning it into a musical instrument. And then there are lots of things you can add to your microbit. I wanted to keep it to the basic thing, but like pH sensors for plants, robots, catapults, cranes, that. And I've got 1 minute left remaining. And just say, I'll put a link in as well. I've just started a couple of weeks ago, starting a wee YouTube channel with really, really simple code along how-to videos that you can share with pupils or staff. So I was too fast. I don't know if there was any questions. If there's anything questions, please pass them on, and I'll put a link to the slides and the YouTube channel in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laura. Really good to see how many different areas you're kind of hitting on there. We've got a question up on the screen from Quinton. The kids are getting a real sense of what a micro:bit can do. Sounds really engaging, very varied. Do you do any coding as a progression, or are they just creating all these apps?
So with my class, they started on really basics on the tutorials that were within the micro:bit. Oh, there's my alarm. Within the micro:bit website, and then just getting a sense of how to code buttons like A and B, how to code it to shake, and then we then link it more to real life. So for example, we were learning about Italy and we're thinking about natural disasters. So we're coding our micro:bits. When you shake them, alarms are going to sound, and linking this to earthquakes around us. So, and that's their 8, the kids in my class. And we try to learn the basics and then link it to what we're actually learning.
Yeah, it's like you say, once they get a bit of confidence, they can do their own, they can do their own programs and games, and they're amazed. And how do you find the staff that you work with? How does their confidence build, or how do they feel when they see how much of the curriculum you can hit on by doing some computer science?
Yeah, because I think a lot of them don't understand immediately, and then it's like, here's how you can link it, and it's that idea of this is not just technology, and that idea it's slowly getting there. Not everybody's on board so far, but as that idea is coming along of staff being like, oh yeah, I could have used the micro:bit for that, or they're quite interested to see, oh, like I have micro:bits in my class, and that the kids take during calm down times with relaxation devices on them, and it's like you can see that it can be a useful tool within the room, but slowly getting there.
That's great. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.